Hello, Mary C. Williams friends. This is Miss Britt here. We are starting a new topic today. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you were finishing up your unit on area and perimeter, correct? And now we are moving into another unit, and this unit is going to focus on what are something called multiplicative comparisons. Say multiplicative comparisons, and I will give you a pronunciation guide to the best of my ability. So if you're trying to pronounce this word, you would go multiplicative. So multiplicative comparisons. So what these are situations or word problems, basically, because we're moving into more word problems. So it's situations or word problems where you are using, what does this word sound like? Yeah, sounds like multiplication. It's where you are using multiplication, or there's the symbol, multiplication to comparisons. What's comparisons? When you make comparisons in reading or in life in general, what are you doing? Yeah, you're comparing at least two things. So you have to have at least two things that you're comparing. So you're comparing at least two things. So multiplication to compare. So that's what you will be doing over the course of the next couple of weeks. So our essential question today is, what are multiplicative comparisons? Multiplicative comparisons are word problems or situations where you are using multiplication to compare. And I'm just going to go ahead and put the word using here. Using multiplication to compare. Now I have two different word problems here. I'm going to step out of the way because you should be able to see both of them at the same time. And one of them is something that you are very used to doing already. I'm going to start here with this one. This is the one that you have been doing for a long time. This is like a first grade, second grade, third grade. You've definitely been doing problems like this. So let's start. Jane has 8 apples and Sam has 5 apples. So if I was to do this, I have Jane. And I'm just going to put a J and a colon. This is who she is. This is Jane. Jane has 8 apples. I'm not going to draw apples. I'm just going to draw 8 circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Jane has 8 apples and Sam has 5 apples. We have Sam. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many more apples does Jane have than Sam? How many more does Jane have than Sam? Well, if Jane has 8 and Sam has 5, then they both have 5, right? But the question is, how many more does she have? If Jane has 8 and Sam has 5, and I want to know how many more, then I say the number that Jane has, subtract the number that Sam has, and I get how many more, which is 1, 2, 3 more. So my answer here is Jane has 3 more apples than Sam. This is something that you have been doing for many, many years, but this is not what we are doing now. So whenever you look at these word problems, you will not be using subtraction. You're going to be finding relationships where you can use multiplication or possibly even division, because if you can solve it with multiplication, you can check it with division. And just like down here, if you can solve it with subtraction, we could check it with addition. So I am going to tell you what kind of problem this is. Let me get some of this out of the way so that I can do that. This type of problem is called an additive comparison. This is is where we would be using addition and subtraction to either solve it or check it. But what we are working with are multiplicative comparisons. So this sounds like addition, and just like this one sounds like multiplication. So even though we use subtraction to solve it, it is still considered an additive comparison. This is not what you are going to be doing. I just wanted you to understand the difference between a word problem that sounds like this, using addition and subtraction, to what we are going to be working on, which is a word problem like the one written in purple. So the word problem written in purple says, Jane has 8 apples and Sam has, there's our 5 times as many apples as Jane. You are going to start hearing some language in your word problems like 5 times as many. That's one of the words or one of the phrases that you are going to hear. So I'm going to go ahead and write down that Jane has 8 apples. And I'm just going to do a basket of apples right now and tell you that Jane has 8 inside of it. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than that. This is like my basket of apples. Jane has 8 apples and Sam has 5 times as many. Sam has 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. So in this kind of equation, you are going to be drawing out how many times more of something that someone has compared to someone else. Or it could be the same, it could be a different kind of situation where it's not 2 people, just so you know. So Sam has 8 apples, but he has 8 apples or 8 baskets of apples 5 times. So this one has 8, this one has 8, this one has 8, and this one has 8. So Jane has 8 apples and Sam has 5 times as many apples as Jane. So here's Jane with her 8 apples. Here's Sam with 5 times as many. 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. The question is, how many apples does Sam have? Pause the video and see if you can figure it out. How many apples does Sam have? Perfect. If you pause the video, you should know by now that if Sam has 8 and he has it 5 times, then my equation would be 8 apples times 5 equals, perfect. So we know now that Sam has 40 apples. Sam has 40 apples. How many apples does Sam have? This is what we're going to be working with. This is what you call a multiplicative comparison. So this is where we are going over the course of the next couple of weeks. That means like 2 or 3 weeks. We're not sure exactly how long it'll last just yet, but at least 2 or 3 weeks we are going to be working with this. All right, so let me continue to explain. Okay, so I have a new word problem written here in purple, and I am going to be showing you a couple of the ways that we are going to be solving these types of equations. So the question is now, how will we be solving multiplicative comparisons? Here is a word problem, and here is an example of how we're going to be solving it. I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to tell you what it's called, okay? Miss Britt has $3. So I have $3. Let me change colors. Miss Britt, I'm going to write out my whole name this time. Miss Britt has $3. So I have $3. Miss Todd has 6 times more money. Miss Miss Britt. So she has 6 times more money than I do. I want to know, how much money does Miss Todd have? Well, I know how much Miss Britt has. Miss Britt has $3. But Miss Todd has 6 times more. So when I draw my model, I have to draw the same size rectangle. This is 1 times, because 1 times 3 tells me that she would have 3. But she doesn't have it 1 times. How many times more does she have it? Miss Todd has 6 times more. So because she has 6 times more, I don't draw the box 1 times. I draw it 6 times, and I try to keep my boxes to be the same size to the best of my ability, because remember, I am just drawing free-handed. 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and last but not least, 6 times. Now, each time is the same size bar. So each bar is worth $3. That's my dollar sign, by the way. So when I look at this, I know Miss Britt has $3, and this is how much Miss Todd has. She has $3, but she has it 6 times. So it's 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. So what I would have to do to solve this is say $3 times 6 equals how many dollars? Perfect. Miss Todd should have $18. Let's count by threes. You know your multiples. We've already done our multiples, so you know those. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. My model shows me that Miss Todd has $18. So when I answer my question, I'm going to rephrase it. How much money does Miss Todd have? I'm going to say Miss Todd has $18. Miss Todd has $18. Now, this is one way we are going to be solving these types of equations. This is called a bar model. A bar model. This is one of the ways that we are going to be solving multiplicative equation problems, multiplicative comparison equations. So this is one way that we're going to be solving it, is using something called a bar model. It's very important for you to realize that your bars have to all be the same size length, and what goes inside of the bars has to be the same number each time, because it's the same length. So if this one is worth 3, then this one is worth 3, that this one is worth 3. And these numbers on the bottom are just explaining how many times we drew it. We don't have to write those, because we can see that this is 1 times and 2 times and 3 times and 4 times and 5 times and 6 times, because we made it that many times. So one example, one way we're going to be solving equations like this is using a bar model. Let me show you another example. Okay, for this example, I bet if I just stood back and let you solve it, that all of you guys could solve it without a doubt, because this is not a hard kind of multiplicative comparison. This is actually an easier type of multiplicative comparison that you have been doing. I know for sure that you've been doing it when you were in 3rd grade, that you had done it in 3rd grade. So I'm going to read it to you, and I'm going to show you how we are going to be solving equations like this. Miss Caldwell bought 4 bags of Halloween candy to donate. Each bag contains, and in case you do not know that word, contains means it has When you see me do an underline and a word, that is the definition up above it. So let me back up. Miss Caldwell bought 4 bags of Halloween candy to donate. Each bag contains or has 6 individual. So individual just means single. They've wrapped them singularly. They are singles. Has 6 individual candy bars. How many total candy bars will Miss Caldwell be donating? So that is the question. In order to solve this equation, we are still going to be drawing another type of model, because in 4th grade, just like what we told you when you were taking your area and perimeter assessments, do not attempt to solve equations without first writing and drawing and labeling. You've got to have labels. You've got to have something that you have drawn out. And then we're going to be finishing our answers by restating the question today so that you can see the writing that goes along with it. So, we know that Miss Caldwell bought 4 bags of candy. So Miss Caldwell, she bought 4 bags of candy. And I'm just going to draw 4 bags of candy. I'm trying to make my bags be as close to the same size as possible. She bought 4 bags of candy, right? That's what she bought. Each bag, very important word there. I'm going to change colors. Each bag contains or has 6 individual candy bars. So each bag has 6 candy bars. So this purple is my bag. Inside of it, there are 6 candy bars. If this one has 6 candy bars, how many does this one have? You better believe it. 6 candy bars. I keep going, this one has, and I keep going and this one has. Perfect. So go ahead, you should be writing this with me. I would be writing it on paper and pencil. I'm sorry I didn't say that before, so that you have examples. You'll do the next one like that if you haven't been doing it so far. Or you can always back the video up, because this is a video. So 6 candy bars. Miss Caldwell has 4 bags of candy. She has 4 bags of candy. And inside of each bag, there are 6 candy bars. My question is, how many total candy bars will Miss Caldwell be donating? If she has 6 here and 6 here and 6 here and 6 here, how many will she be donating? We could sit here and add it all day long, but we're getting past the addition part. We now need to be working on making sure that we are solving equations using multiplication. If I have 4 bags with, make sure you can see what I'm writing, 4 bags with 6 bars in each, what would be my equation? Absolutely. My equation would be 4 times 6 equals, gotta be working on those facts. 4 times 6 equals, yes, 24. And you can't just write 24, you have to write 24 candy bars. It's important. All these labels are going to be super important. Again, that's why we were stressing them so much with area and perimeter. So this type of equation is called, you should know this type of equation. You've done it in 3rd grade a lot. I'm going to get rid of my word problem so I can tell you exactly what it's called. This type of equation is called equal groups. You have been doing them. Equal groups. So another way we are going to be solving is using equal groups. Equal groups. So we've got bar models and we've got equal groups, and we still have one more way that we are going to be using to solve these equations. So when you do equal groups, when you were in third grade, you might have done circles and dots, which is what we're going to be doing when we give you your assignments on Google Slides. Or you may have also done circles and stars. Okay? So we are going to be using equal groups. Now, if I wanted to give myself a sentence that goes with this, my final answer would be Miss Caldwell will be donating 24 candy bars, because I have to have my labels. Your labels are going to be very important, one, for you to understand the word problem, but also two, for us to make sure that you know what you are talking about. So you've got equal groups and you have bar models. There's still one more way that we are going to be solving equations. Let me show you. All right, so let's read our last type of word problem that we're going to see whenever we are solving multiplicative comparison equations. There are 7 sunflowers planted in a row. If the farmer has 5 rows of sunflowers planted, how many sunflowers does he have in all? Now there is a very important word that shows up here. Row and rows. What do you know about the word row or rows? Absolutely. Absolutely. You know that when you hear rows or row or rows, that we might be talking about something called an array. And this is the last way that we will be solving equations. So we are going to be asking you to do arrays, we're going to be asking you to do bar models, and we're going to be asking you to make equal groups. So let's solve this equation using an array, which is something else that you did in third grade. There are 7 sunflowers planted in a row. So we know, or we should know at this point, because we went over it already in our last unit, rows go horizontally. They go from left to right. Columns go vertically, up and down, okay? So don't forget this. So we have 7 sunflowers planted in a row. So my rows are going this way, so I'm going to have sunflowers. I'm going to give myself a label. These are my sunflowers. And I have 7 planted in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 planted in a row. If the farmer has 5 rows, so there's not 1 row, there's 5. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If the farmer has 5 rows of sunflowers, how many sunflowers does he have in all? Now, when you are making arrays, it is very important to try and keep it straight and to try to keep it straight up and down, which I see that I did not, so I'm going to erase and I'm going to try again. So I'm going to get in front of the board so that I'm not writing and not seeing. Because when we work with arrays, we want to do our best to keep things lined up, because that's super important. Now, lucky for you, tomorrow when you complete your assignment, there will be a grid there for you to help you keep things lined up so that you don't get them all kind of crazy. So we have 7 in a row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we have 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows, 5 rows. In order to know how many I have all together, I have to finish filling in my array. So I set up how many are in the row, and I set up how many rows that I have, and now I'm ready to fill it in. So if I have 1 row of 7, I have 2 rows of 7. I have 3 rows of 7. Remember, we're just doing the best that we can. I have 4 rows of 7. And I'm going to move this one down a little bit. I have my 5th row that contains or has 7. Now my job is to figure out how many I have in all. How many do I have in all? I can count my columns, and I can count by 5s, which is easier. There's 5 in this column, 5 in that column, so 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So I should have 35 sunflowers. Okay? Or I could count by 7s if I'm going with my rows. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35. I do not want to have to count all of my dots, so we're going to use our multiples. Now let me go back to the word problem because we need an equation and we need a sentence. There are 7 sunflowers planted in a row. If the farmer has 5 rows of sunflowers planted, how many sunflowers does he have in all? Just so you know, we have to start with our rows, because when we do a multiplication equation, we write it as blank rows times blank columns when we write it. So how many rows do we have? We have 5 rows, so my equation should be 5 times 7 sunflowers are in each row. Those are my columns. I have 7 columns. I have 5 rows going this way, and I have 7 columns going this way. So 5 times 7 equals 35. So I have 35 sunflowers, or the farmer does. How many sunflowers does he have in all? I'm going to erase that. The farmer, and if you haven't realized that I am using capital letters for the beginning of my sentences, the farmer has 35 sunflowers in all. That would be my final answer. All right, my friends, so these are the types of problems that you're going to be solving. I do have one more thing to tell you, something else that's going to be popping up. So I'm going to show you the last thing that you should be seeing. All right, the last thing that I want you to understand is while we are doing multiplicative comparisons, we will be using variables. Say variables. Variables are going to, for us, we are going to be using variables, and it's going to be, it could be a shape, it could be a symbol, or it could be a letter. A variable is something that represents something else. For instance, or at least in our case, we're going to be using something that represents, and we're going to be talking about numbers. So it's going to represent something else, but it's going to be representing a number for us. So if you will remember, when we were doing our equations a while back, we were doing perimeter, not a while back, just yesterday. Perimeter equals length plus width plus width. We were using letters to represent numbers, and we're still going to be doing that, except in this time we might say something like this. We might say 3 times triangle equals 18. Your job is to figure out what triangle is. In order for you to do that, you have to ask yourself 3 times what number equals 18, or you could say, you could turn this around and you could say 18 divided by 3 equals triangle, right? Haven't we been doing that? Absolutely we have. You could also say, we could change this around one more time, and we could say 18 divided by the triangle will give us 3. Okay? So these are some different ways. We're going to be using things like triangles, or we're going to be using stars, or we could be using letters like we did with our equations before. But I just want you to know that we are going to start calling things variables, and it's going to either be a shape, a symbol, or a letter that we are using that is supposed to represent a number. So we're going to be looking for what those numbers are when we have those variables. I hope that you understand multiplicative comparisons a little bit more. You do not have an assignment today because we understand that this is a harder topic. So we wanted to teach today and we want to teach tomorrow. And then you will have an assignment on Friday to complete. So please do not attempt to complete your work on Friday unless you understand what you are doing. There will be example pages, but we just like for you to come join us live or ask us questions. All right, my friends, have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you later.